Hello, just a couple quick notes before we start this week's show. One, the show was fairly lengthy. I don't really apologize for it. Aidan and I really had a good conversation, and we got a little carried away, maybe answering some questions, but it's there, and I think it's good. So I'm not really that sorry, but just so you know, it's a bit lengthy. Two, the Women's Hampshire FA Cup final has been postponed, so do not go down to Portsmouth. The good news is you don't have to go to Portsmouth. The bad news is it's been postponed. I don't have any other information on it, so just wanted to give you a heads up because I've been talking about it for a few weeks here. And third, there are a few small curse words in this episode, so if you listen around children, maybe put your headphones on. It's probably nothing they haven't heard before, but I had to tell you that. So now, here's the show. You're listening to the Southampton Delivery Podcast, a podcast dedicated to the Southampton Football Club and all of the SFC fans.
You just got to go out and express yourself.
Fonte with a scooping header.
You just got to get the job done. I'm here to get the job done.
It's infield to Mane, 25 yards out. Lovely ball for Bella. Onside, 1-0. Buffon shot. Oh my word.
He ran around the pitch like Bambi on ice. It was very, very embarrassing to watch.
And now, your host, Matt Markstone. Hello and welcome to another episode of the Southampton Delivery Podcast, a podcast dedicated to the Southampton Football Club and all of the SFC fans. My name is Matt Markstone. I'm the host of the show, and no matter where you are, no matter how you may be listening, thank you for making the show part of your day. I hope that you enjoy it. The show this week is brought to you, as always, in partnership with The Saints Report. For all your Southampton FC news and needs, be sure to visit The Saints Report on Twitter, Instagram, or Facebook. You will not be disappointed. On this week's show, although we are in the middle of an international period, and although many of the players that Saints sent out on international duty have come back for one reason or another, we still have plenty to talk about. There's still a lot of things going on, and with a new manager, with Mark Hughes now in charge and leading the team into his first Premier League game this coming weekend against West Ham, things are very important. Things are heating up. Things are, whatever cliche you would like to use to help you understand or help others around you understand the importance of the games that are coming up over the next few days and weeks. Use them, understand it, because it is a huge period of the season for the team. And despite that, it's always a little strange coming into an international break when you're in the middle of one and there's not a lot going on. It's kind of, I always worry, what am I going to talk about? What are my guests and I going to discuss while we're here? But that didn't really happen this time. It was pretty clear early on the kind of issues that needed discussing, whether it's Bertrand's role in the England national team or Hughes' impact or Austin's impact as he comes back. And I get to talk about all of those things with my guest for this week, Mr. Aidan Small of freshsaints.com. So he owns and runs freshsaints.com. So if you haven't checked that out yet, you should. The link is in the show notes. You can also find him on Twitter at Mr. Aidan Small and at Fresh Saints. And so Aidan and I are going to discuss all of those issues. We'll talk about all of them. He was on the Total Saints podcast. A little bit of overlap, not a ton. Ben and I are very, very different. And speaking of other Saints podcasts you should listen to, if you haven't listened to the Saints FC podcast this week with Matthew Letitia, there's a question and answer section, and John was able to get down there and record it, and it is brilliant. And for even somebody like me who never saw Letitia play live, who never understood really his importance or never got to experience his importance, I think I understand it, but who never got to experience that live or even kind of live on TV, it is a fantastic listen. One, Letitia sounds more and more just like a regular guy, and it's great because you realize that he's really not. Although he is a down-to-earth guy, he is something much more important to this football team and this football club. And it's an honor just to sit and just listen to that and listen to the questions come in. And I thoroughly enjoyed it. So lots and lots of Saints FC kind of content, even though I hate that word, going on this week. For you to listen to. You have the Total Saints podcast, you have the Saints FC podcast with Matt Letitia this week, and you have my conversation with Aidan Small, which is here. And so Aidan and I talked for a bit So it's fairly lengthy, and I have packing to do because the next time you hear from me, I will be in London. The next podcast will come to you from the UK. My family and I are very excited. I'm also a little bit nervous, mostly because I'm taking my kids to West Ham, but I think they're going to fight each other and not us. So we should be okay. So I'm going to get off here and let you listen to the conversation I had with Aidan Small over the weekend. And I hope that you enjoy it. And if not, let me know, and maybe we'll change it for next time. And if you did, please share it with someone. Let me know. And remember, you can always get in touch with this show on Twitter, Instagram, or Facebook. The links are in the show notes, and we'll repeat that, of course, in the exit, whatever the outro, if that's a word. So anyway, without further ado, let's get to my conversation with Mr. Aidan Small of FreshSaints.com. Here he is. I'll talk to you on the other side. We'd like to welcome back to the Southampton Delivery Podcast, Aidan Small. He's on Twitter at Mr. Aidan Small, and he is often the man behind the scenes at Fresh Saints. So, Aidan, welcome back to the show. Pleasure to talk to you again. And even with the international break kind of looming over us, still plenty of stuff going on with the club and outside the club to talk about. So, welcome back to the show, and thanks.
Thanks for having me on, Matt. Absolute pleasure. Been really looking forward to this one.
Yeah. We've been trying to work it out for a little while, but just...
Yeah, it's been overdue.
Yeah.
But it'd be good to get talking about it.
Yeah. And it being the international break, you watching any international football? Are you watching any non-league football, or what's your preference on those two? Weirdly
enough, actually been down watching Hereford Football Club today, in the non-league Premier Southern, and top of the table, and a big 5-1 win. So, you know, at a time when maybe Saints aren't meeting all of our winning needs, managed to pick up the feeling through today. Yeah, nice, lovely little boost that. And they had an absolute unit at centre forward, 6'3" bloke, put his, body in front of everything. So, Saints should get down and scouting for, this big target, man.
Yeah. And he probably would have been cheaper than Carrillo,
Just a bit. I think we could probably buy him for a pie. I've got to,
You've been much more productive with your time than I have, as I've made a managerial bracket based on the hotness of each manager. And I'm getting ready to go into the second round after having a Twitter vote. So I think your day has been a little bit more productive than mine. But we had somebody ask some questions about it, so maybe we'll get to that as it comes. But that's down the line a little ways. So, any updates with Fresh Saints before we kind of jump into the team news and things like that?
No, not as such. But keep pushing out the content on every couple of days. So feel free to check it out at www.freshsaints.com. And every Monday, our verdict's still with the Daily Mail. You can pick that up in every Monday edition of the paper, or online for the full report.
All right. And I do see those come out, and I enjoy reading them. And so it's nice to see. And
Thank you very much.
Congratulations to you on being up there.
Thank you very much, Matt.
Yeah. Well, let's go back to, I didn't really have a proper sit down interview with anybody on the Hughes appointment. I talked with a couple people, kind of bits and pieces, but it'd be nice to pick your brain on that. And obviously he went into his first match last week. He got the victory. We didn't necessarily look good in the first half, but just what is it about Hughes that, if anything, it signals like he's maybe is the right man to do the job? And maybe if you don't think that, what is it about him that maybe you have some questions about?
I think the most important thing that we've got to remember, and generally with this whole appointment, is that this isn't a season-long appointment, and this isn't a 3-year contract. I mean, we are running down to 8 games. And that's the bottom line of it. We got 8 games to save our Premier League status. So I think instantly you've kind of got to think about the kind of traits and the kind of experience and the characteristics you want from your manager to bring across to your team. And in that sense, I'm slightly encouraged by the appointment of Hughes. I think he's a manager that's, as Højbjerg said in one of his post-match interviews, he's kind of instantly commanded respect from the players. They understand what he's achieved in the game, and as a player. And he's someone who knows about winning. It's a very cliche term to throw around, but I think when it's 8 games, I think it's something that can give the team a boost. And I think something as simple as respect and just nailing the absolute basics of what Hughes has put in place at, say, Stoke, when he finished in the top 10 for 3 seasons running off, hadn't been in the top 10 for years under Tony Pulis there. So I'm just hoping that he can drill across the absolute basics. And at least I think if he can get our players digging out 70% of their talent, I think we've got enough to beat the drop. I think it's actually a little harsh maybe to throw him in the same ring of the Pardew's and maybe the Allardyces. I mean, if you look on our website at Fresh Saints, we carried out an in-depth analysis, a season by season look at his managerial career and achievements. And genuinely, when you take a look at it and take, a step back from it all, it's a pretty impressive CV on the whole. I think there's a number of instances where he has been sacked or pushed out the door and things have gone sour, but under such times, it was under poor management right at the very top of the club. It was one of those where it's kind of infected right in the roots of the club, and managers both before and after have failed drastically in those jobs. And a lot of them failed even worse than Hughes did. So I think in a number of jobs, maybe Hughes wasn't, an issue as much as it's been played out to be. And I think there's a number of appointments in the past where he's done a good job. Sure, you can look to the final run at Stoke. And I mean, that is certainly a concern. You can't just wave that off for the 3 years. If you're going to praise the 3 years, you've got to look at where it went wrong in that final season. But the bottom line is that it's not a full season. This isn't a 3-year appointment. This is for 8 games. And I think the club decided they couldn't afford to take any risks any longer. They had to go with someone that knows how to handle particular teams in the Premier League, that's worked around it, recently, has a good knowledge of other Premier League sides, and is just capable of being a man motivator, filling a number of players who, underperformed with confidence. And I think mainly it's going to be the psychological impact. I think we've got enough players who are technical enough. All we need to do is find a relatively basic understanding of what we want to do out on the pitch. So long as he can inspire them, put confidence back in them and let them know that they are good enough, that they can bring the game to the opposition, and that command in that respect and making, them really fight for the team. Because in too many games this season, it's an awfully cliche thing to say, but the bottom line is that we're in this position and we haven't shown enough fight, and enough wanting for the manager. So few games I've seen players fighting for Pellegrino, and even when the going gets tough and we thought, maybe at least they'll dig in now, they never did. The last weekend's game under Hughes, as you said, the first half, it was a worrying first half performance, but for all we know, the players could have got out there and began to panic. It's the FA Cup at the end of the day, and Wigan have caused a number of Premier League teams, I think 4 Premier League teams before us, or at least running over into last season's run for them as well. They've given Premier League teams a good challenge, but the most important thing that encouraged me was not just that we got the goals, but the way in which the team managed to go about getting them. It was all kind of summed up by Cedric's 91st minute run from the left wing, bombing on forward. That never would have happened before. It was summed up by Redmond coming on for Buffal when we were already winning. It was summed up by players still continuing to bomb on in the latter stages of the game. And let's not forget, we scored those 2 goals and we missed a penalty, and Gabbiadini also missed a sitter. So, 4 chances there that are clear cut. And I can't remember the last time we created 4 clear cut chances in a single game. And you can say, yeah, it was League One opposition, but you've got to beat what's put out in front of you at the end of the day. And we could have done it in a horrific fashion in the second half, but relatively encouraged by that second half performance.
Yeah, a couple of things that I'd like to talk about a little bit there is, you mentioned him being kind of a man motivator. And if you look back at Pochettino and Koeman, both of those guys were commanding your respect in the locker room and on the touchline. And I think all the players that were there would work for the manager. Puel and Pellegrino, I think you have the opposite. They're kind of more reserved, a little bit more quiet. Tactics aside, those maybe that just doesn't work for these players. And because Hughes comes in and you can tell he's much more kind of energetic. He seems to be involved in training. And he's, if you look at just the images and stuff, he's in people's faces in there. And the Bertrand, Højbjerg, everybody said, he's brought some intensity. He's brought those things back. And I think that is what you need, especially with 8 games to go. And it is, if Hughes can recognize that, I think that's important. And if the players can pick up on that already, I think that's great. And, sure, we had a poor first half, and like you said, you can't just write it off, but we haven't really had a good second half most matches this season. We go into halftime and you can see, 1 or 2 little tweaks and maybe we unlock the defense, or 1 or 2 little tweaks and maybe we can take this game over, and it never happens. And we went in at halftime, probably lucky to be 0-0. And then we came out and we were just a completely different team the second half. And so I have to give the manager some credit there. And although, sure, you have Stoke fans and even some City fans that are not the biggest on Hughes and what he did there. But I think if some of those relationships run sour. People remember Mourinho, not always for the titles, but for kind of the way it ends. And that's usually how it goes, And sometimes the relationships are much better before that. So like I said, short term, everybody understands what's going on here. There are no, in the morning, there will be no kind of like, are you hanging around or what? Like, no, he's got 8 games and then we're out. And then we'll reassess after that.
Yeah, I agree with you. I kind of like how simple things have become there. And I'd have loved to just find out what he said in that halftime team talk. I want to know whether it was a, rocket up the arse kind of team talk or whether it was a cool, calming kind of, turning around, looking at them and going, boys, you're better than that. I'd love to know whether he took a calm approach. And, it's one of those things I think someone should definitely ask him come the end of the season. If we do manage to beat the drop, that would be an interesting little thing to find out because kind of really lifted the fans up, that second half performance. Who knows? It could turn out to be potentially season defining.
Yeah. And I have been saying for some time, and looking at that run we had in March, that by the end of March, we needed to be clear of the drop. And I was thinking, 6 points clear. And obviously we're not going to be that now because we only have one more game. And it's against West Ham. And even if we win, maybe we move a point or two out of it, but we'll just have to see. And now it's just, you just got to grind it out. You have to find a way to improve. You have to find a way to beat teams and gain points each and every week. And just make sure you're not relying on other people having to lose for you to be able to be safe. I think you got to take what you can, and hopefully, Hughes can do that. And I kind of think he will. I kind of think this is the right type of manager, right type of coach for the team in this situation.
Yeah, I would agree. And I think also going back to what you said about Koeman and the respect that he kind of commanded, I think often Koeman kind of took up a naive approach tactically, and we kind of played some really ugly football at times, but surely because he was Ronald Koeman and he had that kind of respect from the players, no one dared undermine him and no one dared not work for him still. And I think Mark Hughes could bring similar to Saints, especially across an 8-game period. And lots of people say, he gets worked out and whatever, but we haven't got time to work anyone out. We've got 8 games left. Games are coming so thick and fast that it's going to be dealing with the absolute basics. And I think lots of the worries that people have over Hughes simply aren't applicable to an 8-game situation where the squad just need a morale boost and to nail their basics.
Yeah, some people, some of the Stoke fans I saw tweeting at some of the Saints fans were talking about the transfer window and some of the players that he bought. And maybe whether he bought him or Stoke bought him, I don't think he's going to have any business in, even if he hangs around. Les Reed seems to take care of most of that. But there's no transfer window right now. He's got the squad he has.
Exactly.
And he's just got to figure out how to get us to score goals. And I think he won a lot of fans over the moment he put out that lineup and he had 2 strikers up top. Like that for most fans, or I won't say most fans, for a lot of fans, that for them was, he obviously recognizes we need this or whatever, or he's listening or whatever it is. And people were happy with that. And I was happy with that. I thought, it's a fairly kind of basic formation. I think people think of it as, we almost every kind of under 18 team in the States where I live in California, everybody plays 4-4-2. And then it's not until you get, up into higher kind of divisions that you start kind of mixing in the 4-2-3-1 or 4-3-3 or whatever else it is. But, the fact that he put 2 strikers up top and I think that just signals something to the fan base that like he's willing to kind of go after it and we're not going to sit back and do it. And we'll see how he approaches kind of the rest of the matches. But, with that kind of, formation, we have a player coming back in Austin who's back training with the squad now. And I guess moving towards that, I guess what impact does he have on, our striker situation? We have, it's kind of funny to think of all the strikers we have, Long is the only international, that he's the only one gone on international duty right now. So he has Gabbiadini, Austin, and Carrillo all there to work together, all there to work with him. And that was something that I thought during this international break, we have a lot of players that are still around. There's a core group of players that are still there that he can work with and kind of get ready for this run in. And the players that are kind of maybe out on, playing for internationally, you think of Boufal, who's going to probably get more game time for Morocco than he will for Saints and things like that. So now he's going to be able to go out and maybe get back in form. And we saw Tadic score a goal and we'll come to him in a little bit. But, I guess going back to Austin and Carrillo and, Gabbiadini, what impact does Austin have coming into the fold now as we move forward? Who loses out? What formation do you think best suits Austin? And maybe if he has a partner, which partner do you think is best for him?
I think in my eyes, in this current situation, in Saints' current zone, Charlie Austin for me is without a doubt our best striker. I think we've got plenty of players in the squad that are capable of playing the pretty game. But what I think recently and especially over the past year or two, we've lacked that ugly, ruthless side. A little bit of the Ricky Lambert in ways, someone that just can do the absolute basics of centre forward play, someone that's willing to back up with his man, challenge them, go, shoulder to shoulder with them, and someone who can cleanly strike a ball. And I mean, absolutely leather a ball. Austin, his impact and in his ability to find goal scoring opportunities is above and beyond that of the rest of our squad. And I mean, I'm a big fan of Gabbiadini's movement and what have you, but I mean, you look at the numbers, the minutes that Austin's played in comparison to others and the goals that he's got minute by minute is off the scales. Even swinging across to the whole XG and stat side of things, he's got 4 times the number of expected goals as Gabbiadini, Long, in half the amount of minutes. He's absolutely racing ahead of them. And I'm a huge fan of Austin, and he's got this weird tendency to actually play better in a team that's struggling for an identity and a team that's really struggling to find their feet. He almost thrives on being the saviour for a team in situations like that. And I feel like he absolutely revels in the team struggling. Charlie's coming back and it's his time to make his mark on the team. I feel like he just absolutely loves that. But I do think that Mark Hughes is going to continue with putting Gabbiadini in the side. And I think Mark Hughes selecting Gabbiadini for the penalty maybe was a little bit of a sign of what's to come. I think he wanted to get some confidence back in Gabby, score him on the first game. And it's a real shame that he didn't score that because it wasn't even a bad penalty. It's a real shame. It would have been lovely to kick him off with that. But in the longer run, I'm not overly fussed on the formation side of things. I'd just like to see Austin and Gabbiadini both in the team. The bottom line is that we haven't scored enough goals this season. And at majority of the season under Pellegrino, we've only had one player on the pitch that I would say is perfectly capable of scoring 10 plus goals in a season. And the bottom line, we came into this season talking about Europa ambitions. If you don't have more than one player in your team who's outright expected to get 10 plus goals in a season, you're going to struggle to score goals. It's as simple as that. I mean, Redmond was our second top goal scorer and he had 7 Premier League goals in the season before. And you compare that to the previous seasons where we had 12 from Long, 15 from Pella and 14 from Mane. That's 3 players with 10 plus goals. Mm-hmm. And at any one time in this season, we've only fielded one, and that's our centre forward. Buffal's there for the trickery and finding pockets of space, but he's not a goal scorer. Tadic is there, eye the needle passes, but again, you can only really rely on Tadic to get 5 odd goals in a season. So I think for the remainder of the year, as much as I'd like to think that we can play the beautiful football with, numerous attacking midfielders and wingers in the holes there, I think it's important that we get Austin back into the lineup, someone that's proven that he can score in this rut for us. And I think because Mark Hughes had previous interest with Gabbiadini at Stoke and he's tried to sign him in the past, and I think he clearly favours him. I'd quite like to see maybe Gabbiadini working in behind Austin, or maybe on the right hand side, working as a kind of inside forward. But I'd just like to see 2 recognised goal scorers out on the field. It doesn't have to be 2 up top as such, but 2 goal scorers out on the field in some capacity.
Yeah. So I guess kind of thinking about it and trying to put a lineup together in my head, we have guys like, so you kind of gone with Austin and Gabbiadini up front somewhere. Mm-hmm. If you kind of drop back to that midfield, if we play 4-4-2, it's flat. You have, is it Romeu that comes in? Is it Lemina and Højbjerg that start in the middle there?
I think Lemina and Højbjerg, you'd have to roll with them after, last weekend's performance and the positivity we showed in the second half. Although I do think Romeu's still got a part to play in this season. And I still think that Mark Hughes will like that type of player. On the wings, I'd like to see Nathan get back into the side, get his confidence back up. He's had a fresh start. And Buffal's trickery as well. I mean, I just love watching Sofiane play. And I think with 2 goal scorers on the pitch and the new manager effect, I'd love to see Sofiane have a big end to his season. But again, Tadic, I'm hoping he can rediscover some form there. And I think Mark Hughes potentially coming into this will think, Tadic has created so many chances so consistently over the years. And I mean, lots of people will criticise his performances at times, and rightly so. But, Mark Hughes will be thinking, I need to put the ball in the back of the net. Bottom line, that's what he's got to do. And Tadic has got a proven record over the years of helping others into doing so. But yeah, I'd like to see Nathan and Sofiane on the wing. I think that would be something that interests me.
All right. And then I guess the back 4 kind of stays the same, right? I don't think there's any real change in that. And it'll be interesting to see as Mayashita gets more and more healthy. I kind of feel like he's just going to play almost the Per Mertesacker at Arsenal role and just kind of guide those young center backs in. He's not going to play very often.
I think so. And then, good for the squad morale. And I mean, speaking of it, I mean, we haven't even talked about Alex McCarthy. He's just a given in the lineup now, isn't he? Every week. I mean, so much credit to Alex McCarthy. God knows what other situation we could have been if we didn't decide to put him in the side. And I think testament to him is that most game weeks, we don't even come away saying anything about him.
Right. And because for so long, for so many matches, there were always kind of glaring mistakes from Forster that would either lead to a goal or, almost lead to a goal for the opposition. And so the fact that McCarthy, for the most part, there's nothing to say about him because he's just doing his job, and that's great. And maybe that speaks to the guys in front of him doing it slightly better as well. But there have been a couple of matches where he's made some fantastic saves, where he has. And I think the only mistake I can ever think of him making was kind of when he handled the ball on the edge of the area, maybe possibly outside the area, and I forget even who it was against. But other than that, I think he's been wonderful. So. I think that team is strong, and I think that team offers like goals and a threat going forward. And you have pace, you have trickery, you have kind of the guy who's going to boss people around and the guy who's going to make good runs. And now we just got to find him. So I think that's pretty strong there. And I guess some of the other things that came up this week, Cedric spoke to, I think, a Portuguese news source. Some of his comments, I don't know, not directly quoting him here, but something about negotiating some sort. He was looking to exit, and the price that came in for Van Dijk, they were both negotiating an exit at the same time, and the price for Van Dijk was so much that Les Reed said yes, but he told Cedric, you can't leave. First of all, is this even a story? Is this something we need to kind of look at and talk about, or do you think does it affect maybe the way he's played the season, or explain the way he's played the season, or anything like that?
Well, I've got to admit, when I first saw this, I kind of thought, what? I was just so confused by this. I don't think anyone expected this story out. I don't really think anyone had any idea that this was going on behind the scenes. First and foremost, I would say, one thing I've always said that I'd like Southampton to have done with their negotiations was kind of come to an agreement that with players by way of moving on, you can't come to Southampton, have one good year and try and find your move. That's one thing I heavily disagree with. I think sometimes fans have maybe given unjust hatred to a number of players who've spent 3 years here and really put in their work and end up getting bad treatment when they leave. But Cedric, the first year under Koeman, let's not forget that he was being benched for Cuca Martina largely. And I would say he's only had just in total one good season. And that's under Puel. Mm-hmm. I think he had a very good season that year. And I wouldn't particularly say he's been bad this season. I put it this way. I wouldn't say he is one of the least of our worries at right back. I don't feel like Cedric is an issue at all. And for us to be maybe looking at saying, we can afford to throw him out of the team, I would completely disagree. In fact, I'd say, you look outside the top six at the other the other side's fullbacks. We have probably got the best fullback outside of there. Maybe Seamus Coleman at Everton, but he's been out injured for a long while. And let's not forget he is a Euro winner as well. I mean, so too is Jose Fonte, but but yeah, no, I kind of appreciate the honesty, perhaps because he's still remaining a professional. He never kicked up a fuss. Still seems very much involved in all the things that Southampton appear to be doing. I can't say I'm a fan of him perhaps trying to force the move, but at the end of the day, he's got his head down. I don't think his attitude has been particularly poor. I've seen a number of people saying, fine, he can leave because, his crossing's bad. But I think at this time of the club's, situation that they find themselves in, maybe now is not the best time to judge a player's potential or capacity. I think, a lot of players have been affected by this. And there's, players are humans at the end of the day. Some players thrive in being in a relegation scrap and really rise up to it. And others are demotivated naturally. I think that's the bottom line of it. And maybe it's been a little less appealing for Cedric. Some would say tough shit. But I think he's a perfectly good asset for the team, and I don't think he's an issue to worry about at all. And generally speaking, I think outside the top six, we've arguably got the best pair of fullbacks in the league.
Yeah, no, I would normally go with that as well. And I don't think Cedric has been as good this year as he was last year. I think that's obvious.
Agreed.
But I don't think any of our players have been as good as they were in previous years. So
exactly.
It's a kind of a whole squad thing. And who knows? I mean, maybe you're just asking too much of him when he's really kind of the only threat going down that side, and you're expecting him to do, cover all this ground and do all this. And like you said, there aren't very many fullbacks out there who can do all that. I think there are a lot of teams out there who would, if you offer them a trade of fullbacks, they'd take it right away. There wouldn't be.
It'd snatch your hand off for it.
Yeah. So and like you said, I do appreciate his honesty in saying that he was possibly looking to leave, because I think if you look around at what the club was doing at that point, kind of how they handled the Puel situation, and the players must have known that was coming. Like, why wouldn't you want to get out of there? Why wouldn't you go look for something else and go somewhere where you can enjoy your football, and the fans that kind of seem to enjoy it as well, because the atmosphere at St. Mary's towards the end of last year, remember, was terrible. And I don't think it's anybody's fault. I just think it was a combination of a number of frustrations kind of building up, and the players feel that too. They're not immune to that as much as we would like them to be.
Yeah, and I think it's also sometimes people forget this is a lad who came off the back of winning a Euro tournament. And if you're young and you win the Euros with Portugal, why wouldn't you feel confident in yourself? Why wouldn't you back yourself? And at the end of the day, he's Portuguese. He's not from Southampton. He hasn't got, let's be honest, let's not lie to ourselves. He hasn't got a heartfelt affiliation for Southampton. He hasn't got this reason to feel like he should undyingly stay here and prove to every Southampton fan for 4 years that he can be the best. Sure, I think he's a committed professional, but you can't expect such, crazy loyalty from players. And I mean, God knows what he could have been thinking about Pellegrino this whole time. Let's not forget that he might be thinking his career's potentially on the line under Pellegrino, and how much the side's been restricted. He could have been hating the past few months. And, it's hard enough for us fans supporting and turning up one day a week. Imagine, maybe dealing with Pellegrino and on a 6 day basis a week. So, we got no idea. I think right now everyone's just focused on keeping us up, and in the summer then we'll come to review that. But I think right now I don't think we can really question the commitment of any of our players, really.
Kind of moving on, there were Rob Adam Evans, who writes for Fresh Saints, recently put out a piece about Romeu and some of the performances that he's had, and maybe hopefully the ability of Hughes to be able to reignite him a little bit. And it's interesting because if you kind of look at the players who were so good for us one season and then kind of fell off the season after that, and how quickly they go from being heroes to kind of being vilified and blamed for a lot of things. And honestly, as a fan, I'm trying to find a reason that we're not succeeding this season, and I think the tendency is to find a place to put the blame. And sometimes it falls on Romeu, because he seems to be the one in midfield who is slow, who is losing possession slightly more, or at least it appears slightly more than he has in previous seasons. Who, he's not as exciting as Højbjerg or Lemina. That's just the bottom line, is he's not that type of player. So, when we're playing slow, we want players who are on the pitch who are going to move the ball a little quicker and be a little bit more kind of dynamic. And that's definitely what Lemina and Højbjerg seem to bring to the team. But, looking at him, does he fit in, you think, to this Hughes side? And what do you think he needs to change about his about his game, I should say, in order for him to kind of get back to the Romeu of a year ago rather than the Romeu of this season?
I think Rob and I were discussing that he's kind of become I guess you could say like a symptom of like the disease that was Pellegrino, because of the negativity that he spread throughout this side. I mean, so often, when the team was, we go a goal up, say, and we retreat in a bid to, protect our lead. And instantly that then places Romeu on the edge of his box. So instantly he's in a territory where he knows that if that player gets past him, they've got a good shot on goal. Or he's in a dangerous area to commit a foul. And it instantly kind of takes that bite that Romeu has out of his game. He's got to be a little more conservative. He's sitting deep. He's remaining patient. And I don't think that suits Romeu's game. I think he's always best playing at a high intensity, playing instinctive. I don't think he's as good when things, slow down in that sense. I think Romeu's brilliant when the game's madness, in all honesty. I think I love watching him on the heels of the opponent. I love him going for the high press. And often under Puel, we didn't ever really adopt that deep positioning that we did under Pellegrino. The football was dull, but lots of the time we kept possession for possession's sake. We kept it high up the field. with Puel. So, when Romeu would win the ball and we're pressing positively or winning the ball back positively, he's winning it high up the field and laying it off to his teammate, and he's initiating the counter-attack. But the speed with which Southampton build up this season, on the occasion that Romeu will win the ball back, he lays it off to his man, but it just looks like a dull pass. It doesn't look like he's initiating anything because the negativity that Pellegrino spread throughout this squad. And I think also, he's a La Masia product. He grew up in and around, Barcelona, believing that you take the game to the opposition, you play the way that you want to play, and the opposition react to you. You take control and they react to what you're doing at the heart of the midfield. But under Pellegrino so often, he was telling Romeu to react to the opposition, to be in fear of the opposition, to be wary of what the opposition are doing. And I just don't think that's in Romeu's DNA. And the simple thing then, as the fans on watching, you're watching Romeu's a typically more negative player playing in a system where he's not flourishing in a negative team. And you say, yeah, no wonder we're not scoring goals because we need, more dynamic central midfielders. I don't even think it's particularly the issue. I think, lots of the time, if you play a defensive midfielder, sometimes it can add more attacking flair to your side because, he's able to let the attackers flourish. He's able to plug the gaps for them. He's able to win the ball back and give it to them higher up the field. And lots of the time, fielding an attacking player doesn't mean the team's going to be more attacking. It's creating the best unit possible. And that's something that, Pellegrino failed drastically with. And, I'd just give Romeu a free pass for the last few months, in all honesty. I'd throw it behind, forget about it, because there's not one single player that developed under Pellegrino. Not one player, thrived. And you look back to Claude Puel, Cedric definitely had his best ever career season. I think he'd agree with that. Mm-hmm. Jack Stevens had his breakthrough season. Van Dijk was exceptional. Van Dijk wasn't exceptional under Pellegrino. Let's not forget that. Right. Bertrand definitely had a better season. Nathan Redmond had his best Premier League season to date. So instantly you see there that, it's got to be something deeper than just Romeu having an off year, if not a single other player in the squad's flourished either.
Yeah, no, that's 100% accurate. And I think sometimes we lose kind of the big picture perspective and the ability to look back and kind of put it all in perspective. And I know that because even trying to think about that, kind of going into a game and you're focused on what's going wrong, and all we kind of say is, well, this has happened before, and we just leave it at that. And so I think sometimes it's good to kind of look back and see him as a symptom, or see this as a symptom of what is wrong with the team now, based on kind of the manager we've had for the majority of a season, who really I thought they were going to stick with him the entire time. Had we not lost in the manner we did to Newcastle, I bet you he stays. And yeah. And, so thank you, Rafa Benitez, for doing that to us, because I don't think we were going to improve enough to kind of stay up. But I mean, coming out of this international break, we're kind of going into, let's pause there for a second. Let's look at the international kind of break and competition. The England squad specifically, only one player from Southampton makes the squad, and Bertrand, he pulls out because of precautionary injury. Listening to people talk about Danny Rose should be on the left-hand side. Personally, I mean, I like watching Spurs when it was Danny Rose and Kyle Walker. I thought that was fantastic, but I don't feel like they've missed him at all, really. And I think Bertrand can offer so much more. And I know you were having a discussion with Michael Cox, which is an accomplishment and a feat in and of itself. And, but you were having a conversation with him, where he seems to like Ryan Bertrand a lot as well. And so I guess going into Russia, or going to Russia this summer, is it just Bertrand has a chance to be in the squad, for England and actually get some game time? Or do you see anybody else that has a chance maybe to do that? And then when we talk about Bertrand, do you think he's actually going to get minutes, or do you think he's going to be stuck behind Rose and maybe even Ashley Young?
I think, just to, sing Bertrand's praises, for the past few years, I think he's arguably my favourite Saints player over the past few years. The consistency that bloke plays with is absolutely brilliant. I think, and in terms of a professional, he's absolute inspiration for the rest of the squad, and for any Southampton youngsters. I mean, he's as professional as they come. He's such a consistent player. And I would definitely be starting him for England. One that interests me, the idea of potentially playing him as a left centre back. I think we'll remember when he played in that position under Ronald Koeman. And testament to how professional he is. That was in the build up to the Euros. Danny Rose was playing out of his skin for Spurs at left back. Uh-huh. Meanwhile, Bertrand's, playing left centre back, but you never hear a peep out of him. I think the amount of other, professionals who would have kicked up a fuss and been a little prima donna about things like that. So many would have done that. But he was absolutely faultless in that position. I think Southgate's clearly interested in playing in, the three centre backs and full backs. And I definitely think with the form of our centre backs and the amount that haven't played, I'd be open to playing Bertrand as a left-sided centre back, potentially with Stones for the ball playing ability. And in terms of a defender, out and out defender, I still think Phil Jones is probably just about the best defender England have got. Obviously, you've got the worries of his fitness and what have you, but yeah, I'd like to see him in there. It seems that maybe Rose's legs are a little shot. And everyone kind of expected him to come back into the side with the same intensity, but it's been a kind of worrying return for Danny Rose so far. But yeah, I think Bertrand is more than capable of starting, and I think he deserves to, especially his performance levels over the past year and a half when the Saints team have been dire many times. Outside of that, I'd like the idea maybe of Ward-Prowse playing in the squad, but is it particularly deserved? Not as much. Is it something that I think he would add plenty to the England squad? Maybe not. His set pieces could be useful for the squad, but at the minute I don't think we can particularly complain with only one player being in the squad. I think it's a given that Bertrand's in there, but the others have to play for England have got to step up on a more consistent basis than they have been.
Yeah, absolutely. And kind of going into a World Cup, and I would ask you about the US squad, but it doesn't matter because we're not going. So going what it takes to kind of win there. If you're going to switch up formations and things like that, you have to have players who are versatile enough to be able to do that. And Bertrand offers you that. He can play on the left side of a three. He can play in the wing back role. He can play as a traditional kind of left fullback. Rose doesn't really offer you that.
No.
So I think that's a testament to him, and that should kind of help him get in there. But I worry about him getting there and then not getting the game time. And I think you said he might be your favorite. He definitely is my favorite. He, maybe it's because I'm left footed and I'm pretty bad, so I play left back, but like that he just is. I like watching him, and I try to, I think when you're a kid and you watch kind of professionals play and you just you go out and try to recreate and do those things. And I find myself at 32 trying to do what he does. And it looks bad sometimes because I can't do it, but it's a work in progress, but it's all right.
Yeah. I think he's one of those players we won't quite realize just how important he is until he eventually moves on. I don't really know what kind of move he would get, especially, with his age going on. And I think he's pretty content here. I think he's loved it. And I think he's maybe spent his time at a big club, seen what it's like to not be fully valued by a club, spent time at lower Premier League clubs that have, taken him in and thrown him out. And I think he's loved just being a mainstay in the Southampton side. But I'll tell you, whoever has to replace Bertrand, they have some mighty big boots to fill. And it wouldn't surprise me if there's a big teething issue of, come the day that he does eventually move on. I think he's one of our best players in recent years.
All right. So kind of building from that, I think that the idea that Bertrand will be the only Southampton player in the World Cup squad, I don't really think we can complain about that. Even with JWP being the captain of the under-23s and kind of that, I don't really think he's done enough to kind of get into that squad yet. Maybe early on in the, not even in the qualifying, but in just kind of friendlies and things like that. Maybe that's fine. But building up to the World Cup, maybe you would hope that the squad would be a little bit more, it would be about fine tuning right now. Although the squad that Southgate chose, people have a lot of questions about it, but we'll see kind of, how they progress. And hopefully, as I think the saying goes that you guys tend to think, yeah, we're going to win the World Cup and then, out in the quarterfinals or whatever it is. But I hope that's not true. I hope Kane comes back fit and plays well. And, obviously with, I don't have a team in there, so I'll be rooting for you guys for the most part.
I'll tell you, I'm gutted that the USA aren't coming. I love watching them every time in the World Cup. I think just such a fun team. It's just an interesting team to have in the World Cup. I think it's really annoying. There's a number of brilliant teams missing at this World Cup. Chile as well, Italy. I really enjoyed watching all of those over the years.
Yeah, and I mean even the Netherlands as well.
Netherlands. You get an Iron Robben masterclass, or Robin van Persie masterclass in recent years, and it's just not quite that, is it?
No. So I remember, I think it was 2010, maybe. I had just graduated from college, and I was starting to teach. And I wasn't watching football at all. It was kind of anti-football. It was all about baseball. And my buddy is watching the final. It was at Spain-Netherlands final, right?
Yeah.
I think so. It was on like at 10 a.m. here, 11 a.m. here, and I showed up just orange juice and vodka, and it was just like, this is how I'm representing the team that I'm cheering for. And I don't remember any of the match. I just remembered like needing to ride home, and that was it. And
that Iniesta goal. Wow.
But I just had no idea what was going on. Yeah, I wasn't there to watch the game. I was just there to kind of hang out with my friends.
Have a drink.
Yeah, and have a lot of drinks. And then, you kind of fast forward 4 years, and I was at a work conference during the initial kind of group stages. And so, they actually paused our conference when the US was on, and we all, like, there were over 1,000 of us.
Big fan of that.
We all went into the thing. We watched on two giant screens, and just like that experience alone is like something I'm never going to forget. Just that feeling of being able to watch, and just all these people, not even all of them football fans, just we're all here. We're all going to do this. And it was, I don't know. I can't even really describe it. And so to know that we're missing that, and like the people who were in my shoes, who were kind of on the fringes of really watching the game and really getting into the game, they're not going to have that. We're missing 4 years of that now. And so that worries me about the game in the US as a whole. But hopefully, we have new clubs coming in the MLS. Some of the second and third divisions are going through a bunch of changes. So hopefully they can sort those out. But I'm a little bit worried about it, just building in the future. But
I'll bet.
Yeah, those are different issues, I think, than a lot of places have to deal with.
It's gutting now for you, but you just wait till the World Cup gets started. You'll be so gutted that you're not involved in that tournament. I mean, it's just for the the development of MLS itself as well, and just the pull power and just getting more fans behind it. It's a real like sad impact almost, isn't it, for the States? I mean, you think the amount of extra supporters, people that could have, founded a club or decided to start supporting a club as a result of this World Cup. It's crazy.
Yeah, I don't know. It's gonna be weird. But hey, we got Zlatan as of a couple of days ago, so praise to that. I saw somebody tweet something. I can't wait for Zlatan to show up, to a match with 7,000 people on artificial turf, 110 degrees. And just him go like, what did I do? What am I doing? Why did I sign up for this? But
it'll be an interesting one to see. I mean, he's had the big injury. It'll be interesting to see how he bounces back from that. I mean, he had all that talk of I'm a Lion 6 months ago when he was suggesting that he'd recovered to, back to full fitness in 2 months. But I mean, that's not quite panned out, has it?
No. And, and a lot of the places over here are artificial turf, and we'll see. The players don't like playing on it. I know the Women's World Cup, there was a lot of complaints about it and lawsuits and things filed because they had to play on it and the men didn't. But we'll see. We'll see. And it will give me an excuse because the Dynamo will head over there to play the Galaxy at some point. I think right after I return kind of from England. So that will maybe be an excuse to go see him and just see.
Yeah, any old excuse.
Yeah, I'll take it. We have the next match coming up against West Ham, and we don't normally do these podcasts kind of so early in the week. I leave the previews to anybody else, but I'm not really looking for like tactics or anything going into it, but just how big in your mind is this match against West Ham coming up on Saturday?
Oh, it's absolutely huge. I think if we can get a result here and pick up all 3 points, I just think the buzz from the fans will just transpire onto the pitch as well. And I think the players will really start believing it. And I mean, at the end of the day, you'll say it is only Wigan and it is only West Ham. But who cares at this moment in time? We need points. We need confidence. And if we can pick up those 2 back-to-back wins, God, it will just be an absolute dream going into those final few games. I want to make this final stretch fun. I mean, if we're going to throw ourselves into this situation, we might as well make it fun and we might as well try and enjoy it, because we've been so devoid of enjoyment and entertainment throughout this season. I'm just hoping for the fans' sake that we can at least enjoy this final stretch. A number of players can step up and we can have that feeling of optimism return where, a number of our bigger signings maybe step up. I'd love nothing more than to see Carrillo get amongst the goals and the players, the Redmond to get his first goal of the season. I mean, if we could get that going this weekend. Just be such a big boost for the players and for the club. I'd love to see Hughes instantly go out with a similar team sheet as well. I think fans will be backing him right from the off, and especially with the hostility at West Ham at the moment. I think it's a game of huge importance, not only just because of the league, the league position and the situation that we find ourselves in. Just because two like-minded clubs, I think two clubs that, I think whoever loses this weekend will be in that next week, will be an absolute meltdown. And whoever wins is going to be, so happy. I mean, it's a huge game. And yeah, I'm just absolutely dying. If we can pick up a win here, I fancy ourselves to be able to beat the drop and just keep the form going.
Yeah. Kind of on that note, we have kind of two questions or tweets, and one of them's a question and one of them's not directed at us, but Daniel Bateman, I'll just give him on Facebook, posted in one of the forums on Facebook, says, if Mark Hughes keeps us up, does he deserve a long-term contract? And we also have a question from Tyler Davis on Instagram. He's at Tyler.Davis_. Do you think we should keep Hughes if we get relegated? So, both scenarios, do you think Hughes is here for the long term, or do you think that this eight week or 8 match contract, that's it for him and he should go, or he keeps us up or not?
It's a really hard question. I think my dream scenario would be that, Hughes can keep us up, float the boat until, the end of the season, boost a few players' confidence, get us back to where we are. We, wave goodbye to Hughes, thank him. He becomes absolutely adored by Southampton fans. Everyone happy. Hughes has built up, a bit of a better reputation after, the situation that Stoke finds themselves in. We recruit a forward-thinking manager. We go again, because I don't particularly think that I don't want to roll with Hughes for the long run. But for the situation that we find ourselves in, it's absolutely perfect. Maybe slight worry of mine is that we do so well in this final run of the season, that we almost feel inclined to give Hughes the job. The thing starts, a bit shaky at the start of next season, and all of a sudden we're in the same situation that we were at the beginning of last year. That's a real worry of mine, that we kick the cycle again and jump right back into it. And if we could keep Hughes if we got relegated, then yeah, that'd be something I'd be very happy to get behind. I think it'd all just be depending on whether Hughes feels like he's got the respect of the players, whether he feels like they're actually on board and listening to him. I still think he's better than a Championship manager. I still think he could get a job in the Premier League. I don't think he would have to maybe drop to that low that quick. But yeah, my general feeling, it all depends on how we go from the rest of the season. If the football's brilliant, we absolutely love it, and the players adore him, and the fans are delighted with how it's gone. Who knows? I could be changing my mind from here till the end of the season, but at this moment in time, I would say that I'd expecting Hughes to, steady the ship, take us to the end of the season. We part our ways. We're happy. It's respectful. But the big issue is then we've got to absolutely nail that next appointment, because God will be the laughing stock if Hughes manages to do a brilliant job of keeping us up. We appoint someone else, and we get a repeat of the whole Pellegrino situation.
Right. Yeah, that's exactly it. People are already looking at us, kind of looking at the fan base as being a bit petulant after wanting Puel out. And I don't really think we were. Nobody. The football was awful, but 8th place in a cup final. That's all anybody outside sees. They're not watching every match, and so they
see the black and white, don't they? They're not the ones paying £400 to watch them on a weekly basis.
Right.
And I've always said there's far more to life than just hitting that. Just being able to play that way. You pay that much money because you go there to be entertained, to escape the rest of life, just turn up to the stadium, watch a game of football, and just go to this other planet almost,
Mm-hmm.
And sometimes it was just so depressing, in all honesty, for different reasons to Pellegrino. To be perfectly, I wouldn't even put the two in the same bracket. Puel is a very competent manager, and I've still got a lot of respect for him. On the whole, I don't think he'd done a particularly bad job at Saints, but my word, we couldn't go on any longer in the situation. And as we've said countless times, the issue was never sacking Puel. It was the man that we decided to replace him with.
Right. All right. Next one's from LJ_Cecil, and it says, if you had to choose a current member of the squad to eventually be the next long-term captain, who would you choose for that to be, and why do you think that person would be the kind of appropriate choice? And for me, it's kind of a tough decision. I thought that Font was the choice for a long time. Obviously, he was the captain. I thought he played that role brilliantly up until he pushed kind of for the move after the Euros for whatever reason that was. But I thought that I feel like we haven't replaced him yet. Even when Vitek was captain, I don't quite think that Font was. I think that was evident in kind of how we played and things like that. But I think Bertrand's doing an acceptable job. But who would you throw in there and why?
Yeah, I've got to admit, I'd agree with you there. I love the idea of having that captain who everyone in the everyone in the ground knows who the captain is. I love that feeling of that. It's so good for squad morale. And I'm not really a fan of teams that pass the captain's armband around willy-nilly. I don't like it. Players, when they're in and out of the side and, the captain's armband's his 1 week, then the next it's theirs. And, a bad run of form comes and all of a sudden someone else is wearing the captain's armband. I'd either one of Pierre or Højbjerg. I think you'd be crazy not to. He's had an unbelievable football education. He speaks so well off the pitch, and on the pitch as well. I mean, he's barking out orders to the rest of his teammates. Absolute professional, out of the side on so many occasions under Pellegrino after brilliant performances, but no, head down. Gets on with the new manager, comes out in the press conference, speaks absolutely superb, seems to be a brilliant role model. He just gets it. And he was singing the praises of Mark Hughes, which I'm sure would help him if the captain's armband is up for grabs. Outside of that, I think I like the idea of Ward-Prowse. Maybe he comes in and out of the team too often, to be a mainstay as captain. He's got that issue when, no one, I personally like him as a wide kind of extended midfielder, receiving on the right. I liked him in that role that he played at in the cup final, when he's playing out on the right, and you get the best use of his right foot, and his deliveries and, adding balance to the midfield. I like him there, but you get that issue with Ward-Prowse where suddenly the manager wants to switch formation, and he's not a winger. He's not a number 10. And he's not as good at the base of midfield as Romeu, Lemina or Højbjerg. Right. So you can't chuck him in there. On the whole, I think Pierre Højbjerg, I think that's one the fans would get behind. I think it's one the rest of the squad would like. I feel like that would be a solid choice. And I think whoever we pick next, it would be nice to be able to have a conversation with them and say, this isn't a job that we want to hand over for 6 months. This is something we want you to lead for 2 years. This is more than just wearing a captain's armband. It's, leading this next group of players back to where Southampton should be playing.
Right. And on the pitch, off the pitch,
exactly.
All walks of it. You got to really bring it. And yeah, I agree with you. I don't like I know some people don't really think the captain's armband's a big deal. And for me, I think it is. I think when you can't pick out a captain, when you see the captain's armband kind of being handed off, or you see, when Davis gets hauled off, 75 minutes in and he's got to pass the armband to somebody, I don't like that, Yeah. It bugs me and maybe that's just me. I don't know, when I played sports and things like that, when you had that captain you could look up to and know that he was out there doing it.
Oh, exactly.
I'll get behind that all day long. But when it's just one of the dudes that doesn't deserve it and he's only got it because, he's been there the longest, or, he sat next to the manager on the drive in, like, no, I'm not okay with that.
You've just kind of, hit the nail on the head there. And I think even if you can see a difference of what a good captain can make, even if you've even played at a Sunday league level, or you've gone up a little higher than that, and the difference that a captain can make in terms of steadying the team or barking out a few orders, being able to change the team's shape mid-game, being able to react to situations, and just being able to give people confidence. I've played at an awful standard, but I know if you've got a good captain in your team, I mean, it helps the rest of the squad. And if it applies at Sunday league level, the worst kind of level you can play at, really, then, of course it's going to be able to help in the Premier League. And you think so often we praise Jose for his captain qualities and how often he dug deep and led the squad. And you could see it. I mean, you can't hear what he's saying, but you can see the impact that he's having on the rest of the team. And even players that play alongside him, they're in awe kind of playing, being led by this captain.
Right.
And I think it's really important that we do find that again. And all of our greatest success has been with a captain in that role. And behind any team is a strong organisation of, the manager knows his place, the captain knows his place. There's an organised hierarchy within the club. And I think if you want to be a successful club, you need to find that.
Yeah, absolutely. Absolutely. Let's see. One more here on Instagram. It says, if you had to pick one, this is from the Saints FC Zone. If you had to pick one, FA Cup or staying in the Premier League, which would you go with? I know this has been a kind of a topic of debate, and people both have really serious answers for this and also just seem to throw it away. But what do you think about it?
God, that's such a difficult question. I mean, the easiest thing would be to ask the Wigan fans, who did win the FA Cup and go down, and they all say it was worth it. But whether they're just saying that because they're in League One, I don't know. It's a hard one because I really enjoyed many of the times, supporting Southampton in League One and the Championship. And a lot of the time it did have especially over the past year and a half, it certainly had a more homely feel to it. And maybe you feel that there's a lot more fans around you that are all reading from the same hymn sheet. One of those situations where you feel like the people that are there genuinely do want to be there, and it's a little less commercial. But, oh, God, you put me on the spot here, Matt.
I'm sorry.
I will say, go on, FA Cup win. We only ever one major trophy in our club's history. So to be able to watch that and be of the generation that got to watch us win it, for the first time since '76, I don't think I could turn that down. And I mean, who would say, do you remember that season when Southampton stayed up in 2018? And you'll go, yeah, roughly. But, do you remember the FA Cup win in 2018? You bloody bet I do.
Right.
So,
right.
Yeah, I think I'd have to go for the FA Cup win.
I see. For me, just based on the fact that I live where I live, I have to say stay up because I want to be able to watch.
Yeah.
I love the coverage that we get through the website and with Blackmore and Merrington. But God, being able to watch and just being able to mute the commentators and watch and just take it in for better or worse. I would miss that week in, week out, and maybe I'd appreciate it a little bit more. Because if I only got to see it, at once a month, because that's when they would be televised or whatever, maybe that's that. But I don't begrudge anybody wanting the FA Cup win. And if I lived there, if I was in Southampton, it would definitely be the FA Cup win. But it's just me being selfish, wanting us to stay in the Premier League, which I'll be honest with it.
Get coverage on a weekly basis. Yeah. I mean, why wouldn't you want that?
Yeah. And I have seen some of the, stuff. If we win the FA Cup and go down, maybe this cleans out the riffraff in the fan zone. And it's like, I always look at that and go like, I'm not even going to touch that because I don't know if they're talking about me. I don't know who they're talking about, but I'm not in there to mix it up with some dude who's been going to games since 75.
That one does drive me mad, that comment, the whole, if they haven't, just supporting it because of that or whatever, if someone supports the club, they support the club, bottom line. And, you can wait and see. And when maybe if they go to the Championship and then they stop supporting, then you can have your digs at them. Then you can, then you can pop your, laugh at them and, make your comments if need be. But, if someone's a Saints supporter and they keep proving they are a Saints supporter, then, keep backing them. They're a Saints supporter, at the end of the day.
Yeah. Yeah. Some people come in and they're on Twitter for one day. They got 27 followers and they're having to go at Matt Letizia. And that's not, I think if you're that guy, you deserve all the abuse you get. But
exactly.
If you just come in and put your head down and just kind of, try to learn and try to ask questions and things like that, I think that's all that's all we're here for. I'm trying to learn
exactly.
And I'm enjoying the heck out of it. So we got one more kind of serious question and then, one not so serious question, and then we'll kind of, wrap it up. And, this one comes from Tan May. He's on Twitter at @ForeverSaint_. And it says, why is Tadic consistently good for his country and not for his club? I mean, for Saints, he's consistently been a crap player for this year, maybe last year. And we kind of talked about it a little bit, but he does seem to score more goals for Serbia, whether that's the position he's put in, whether that is the players that are around him or what he's expected to do, or just the style of football they play. I don't really know. But I know that under Koeman especially, he had such a great run there that last year under Puel, he was one of those players that maybe didn't perform as well under Puel as he did under Koeman. So, I don't know. Do you have any ideas about that, or is it just kind of one of those things where hopefully he brings that form back and can replicate it under Hughes, or how do you feel about that?
I think I'd say definitely, I would agree, on the eye, he's definitely been a worse player to watch. And I would say that it's fair to assume that he has regressed. But I don't think quite to the extent that many people would suggest. I mean, statistically, in his XG, expected goals that he records on a 90-minute basis, and his expected assists is still pretty high up there in the Premier League. I mean, generally speaking, he is what Southampton expect in the position that we want. Numbers wise, produces what we'd be hoping for as a 8th place to 6th place side. I think you've got to look at the issues that he hasn't particularly formed a partnership quite with another centre forward like he did with Graziano Pella. You've got to think about Tadic here as well. He's probably looking around and thinking, a few seasons ago I was picking out Pella, Mane, and an informed Shane Long, and now I've only got one. Centre forward majority of the time. He's playing it through to wingers who are then trying to cut it back to the centre forward, and he's not laying it through to wingers who are as direct and goal focused. And we had inside forwards there before Mane was getting his 14 goals in a season. So, Tadic is playing with players less end product at the end of the day. You can't expect him to notch up the same amount of assists when, we haven't, quite simple, haven't got the same goal scorers that we did before. So I think he has been harmed by it. But I also, Tadic has got that body language sometimes that just kind of gets under the skin of fans.
It does.
And it's one of those, he's a luxury player. He's a skillful player. And when you're playing well, he's an absolute joy to watch and he's right at the heart of it. But when the team's struggling to get the ball into, play fast paced, struggling to play between the lines, naturally Tadic is going to struggle. And I think sometimes I can understand why fans throw a lot of criticism towards him, but sometimes, I can understand how Tadic has been in a difficult situation. And he if you do look behind the data, he's still putting in his work, and he's not as bad as many people suggest, and at times maybe abuse him before.
Yeah, absolutely. I think I like watching Tadic, and like you said, when he's playing it through to Mane, he's playing it through to Long, who is coming on and kind of now running at defenses who are tired and who have been run at all game and are just worn down. When he has Pella to pick out or to pick the ball up off of when it's being kind of knocked down to him, that's much, much different than him trying to all of a sudden being shoved out to the right and trying to swing it across to Carrillo, who hasn't scored all season. I
think also he knew his role back then. He knew exactly where he played in the side, and he knew he had repeated kind of functions in the team. He'd get it to the left-hand side and he'd hit up those lovely little dink left-footed balls onto the head of Pella. And he knew the runs that Mane would make. And as you say, when Shane would come on late, he knew he could, maybe look to play the ball over the top of the defence. And he always had his, number 10 position or when he would play as the 10 or when he would move out onto the wing, he always knew his area, his role in the side. And over the past year and a half, he's played on the right, he's played on the left. He's played behind the forward, and not one of them's clicked, And at the end of the day, if you're going to be a player that stands out throughout the entirety of the season, you have your place and you have your place nailed. I think it's also been an issue for within the rest of the squad. Tadic sometimes shouldn't have been moved from a position and then does get shifted around because other players aren't quite stepping up or what have you. I think it all comes back to, we didn't recruit enough goal scorers in our squad. And if Tadic maybe had, his set position, and we had recruited right, and we had a player, say, of the Quincy Promes mould, and we had Austin up top, and with Gabbiadini to come off the bench and maybe one other goal scoring player. If Tadic had his, he was a mainstay in one position throughout the season, I'd expect him to get double digits of assists throughout the year. His finishing does drive me insane. And for someone so technically able, I can't believe how much he leans back. I mean, that is just the absolute basics of my dad was screaming to that for me on the sidelines from 8 years old, and Tadic is still leaning back when he hits the ball.
Yeah.
But yeah, I mean, I can understand the frustrations.
Yeah, no, frustrations for sure. But like you said, like you pointed out, I think it's a symptom, similar to Romeo. This is not maybe down to one player. There's something else there that is kind of leading to this. And hopefully Hughes will sort it out. And if you can't sort it out with him, maybe I don't care who plays these 8 games as long as we win. Yeah, exactly. And I think a lot of people as well, I kind of don't like it when players like Tadic get so much disrespect sometimes, especially because he's been here for so many years. I imagine he's loved his time at Southampton. I think people are forgetting how many years he's actually spent here. And as a Serbian who was playing in the Eredivisie, he must have absolutely loved his time here. And I'd love for us to, when Tadic does eventually move on, for us to have nothing but fond memories of Tadic. And I mean, in a few years, I imagine we might be going on to say, God, the things we do for a Dusan Tadic, today, or what have you. Right.
I think he's been a brilliant player for the club. And I'm just hoping, good bit of form at the end of the season with Hughes, keep him for another year and get him back up to his best, because, Tadic, I'm sure, will be the first to agree he hasn't been up to his usual standard.
He is one of the few players who has been there almost since the beginning of my time starting to watch, who's been a consistent first-team player. And so to watch him and see him. I think maybe that has something to do with the reason why I like him, similar to Bertrand. Those guys they're consistent. And when I look at some of the other teams where it's, that guy wasn't there last year, where did he come from? He's played he's had 4 appearances. I don't like that idea. I like the fact that he is consistent, or consistently in the team. And maybe I have a love for him for that, but who knows? All right, one more question. This is from Dan, who's at Holy Hoiberg. And he says, who's the most attractive manager you've ever experienced at Saints FC? He's going to go with Poch. For me, I only have 4 to choose from. It's Pochettino, Koeman, Pellegrino, and now Hughes. And 2 of those are out immediately. And so I think, Koeman's out. Puel's out.
Yep.
Hughes is handsome-ish. And so I don't know. I think maybe I have to go with Pochettino as well. But I mean, you have a preference there? Or anybody? Because you've been watching the team for a lot longer than me. So what do you think?
Yeah, Mauricio's the man. It's got to be surely. And in terms of the football side of things, I'd say Pochettino's was the most enjoyable to watch, definitely. I'd say Koeman's was the most effective. But in terms of just fun and just loving football and loving the players and loving the squad, you'd be absolutely barking mad to look past Nigel Adkins. I mean, that team, it's just, honestly, Matt, that team, I wish you could have been there at St. Mary's experiencing that team and that crop of players coming through at that time. I mean, it was just like such a special team. And it's one of those that genuinely might not get another squad collective like that for God knows how many years. It's one of those absolute joy to like be able to watch that team on a weekly basis. But yeah, for Dan's question, I would be inclined to agree with Poch.
So I all of a sudden had a moment of horror in the middle of your answer. When I'll be honest, when I read his question, I was thinking like actual attractiveness of the manager.
Yeah, no, that's what I originally thought.
Okay. And then, I mean, you mentioned like the moment you mentioned tactics, I went like, oh my God, what if he was actually talking about the football? Not,
well, Dan's got his answers for both. He's got his answers.
Thank
for
you.
both.
Okay. But, so in my managerial, hotness, bracket here, I've seeded them based on just where they are in the table. I didn't want to put anything in there. You have a prediction? Pochettino is a 4 seed. He's going to get a bye in the first round. He's going to get the winner of Benitez or Pardew, which I think actually they voted Benitez through, which means people were just looking at who the better manager was, not who was the most handsome. So Pochettino, I think, gets a leg up through the second round. But you have a predicted winner, because this will be done by the time the episode comes out. So we'll see if you're correct.
Predicted winner. Ooh, I feel like Pochettino's pretty liked now from Southampton fans. I feel like we've all kind of got over the whole way things left and we've kind of just grown to appreciate it. So I think Poch would be right up there. I think you've got to count out Wenger. It's not going to be Klopp because we're talking about a Saints FC hashtag here.
Right.
So it's going to be Klopp. Not going to be Conte. So it's got to be between Pep, Poch and maybe Wenger. No, so Pep or Poch. I'm going to go with Poch.
Okay. All right. I don't know. I like Guardiola, but I'm short, bald, and have a beard. So maybe that's something. Yeah, it's definitely not going to be Mourinho. Nobody likes him.
Sean Dyche. I love Sean Dyche. I absolutely adore that. Like, I'd love him get into a final. I'd like a Pochettino Dyche final.
We'll see if we can get there. But, yeah, but thank you, Aidan, for joining the show and having a little bit of fun and making the international break, not as boring as it could be, because I think there's still that, it's not as easy to talk about things because they're not so out in the open. They're not so blatant and in your face, but there are still things going on that have an impact going on down the road for the rest of the season. And just being able to hear your thoughts on all this stuff and talk a little bit about World Cup and all that stuff. It's been great. So thanks. And is there anything else you'd kind of like to add before we call it a day?
No, absolute pleasure joining you, Matt. And yeah, just if anyone fancies a good old read, then just make sure that you head over to freshsaints.com and be sure to look out for our Daily Mail match reports. Always on my personal account at Mr. Aidan Small, or on the Fresh Saints account at Fresh Saints.
All right, and those are all the links and stuff will be in the show notes. And I try really hard to pay attention to when you guys put things out and try to put them out as well. And because I do enjoy reading the stuff, and I always think it's not, sometimes you read things and you go like, why did I read that? And then I don't feel that way when I read your stuff. So thanks.
I would
thanks
say
for
that's a very good compliment. Thank you.
No, you guys are doing all the work. So thank you. Cause I've tried writing a little bit and it's not going. So, I'll leave that to you guys and I'll just keep hitting record and then, trying to edit out all my ums. So,
sounds all good to me.
Yeah. All right, man. Well, thank you.
Very welcome.
And that concludes episode 64 of the Southampton Delivery Podcast. Thank you so much for joining us. I hope that you've enjoyed it. Special thanks to my guest this week, Aidan Small. You can find him on Twitter at Mr. Aidan Small or at Fresh Saints. And if you haven't done so already, be sure to check out freshsaints.com. Lots of great writing from Aidan and all of the rest of the contributors to that website. Never been disappointed when I've been there. And I don't say that lightly because you only have so much time to read and listen and things like that. So if you're listening to this, I think you will enjoy that writing. And if not, then you don't have to read it again, but I think you will. So special thanks to him for taking the time to join the show. And I hope that he had a good time. I had a good time talking to him. I always do. So yeah. Also, special thanks to everybody who took the time to send in questions on both Instagram and Twitter and Facebook. Always appreciate that. And you can continue to get in touch with us there at SFCDELL_IVERY on Twitter or Instagram. And we're on Facebook at facebook.com/SFCDelIvery. There's no underscore in the Facebook address. And of course, the Facebook address doesn't matter if you've already deleted it. Oops. Additionally, you can email the show at southamptondelivery@gmail.com, or you can leave us an iTunes review or a review wherever you listen to podcasts. Just go ahead and do that. It's always nice to see those as well. If you're a first-time listener, you'd like to subscribe to the show, you can do that to make sure that you get each new episode without having to go look for it when it comes out. All you have to do is take the podcast app you're listening to right now and hit subscribe. That's it. Thanks also goes out to Matt Beeling of the We Are Southampton page on Instagram. For matchday edits, polls, competitions, and more, be sure to check out the We Are Southampton page on Instagram. Matt has been a huge help to this show since the very beginning. He did the logo for the show. I can't thank him enough, so be sure to check that out. And I think that about wraps it up. Special thanks to the Saints Report, who are our official kind of partners. Be sure to check them out on Twitter, Instagram, or Facebook. And until next time, remember that together, we march on.